গুড আফটারনুন সবাইকে। মধুপর্ণা আমি দীপরঞ্জনীর সঙ্গে আছি অ্যাজ এ সাইকোলজিস্ট এন্ড স্পেশাল এডুকেটর। আমাদের in conversation with segment চলছে, and throughout this conversation we have been having speakers, eminent speakers and stakeholders of this fraternity, and today we are privileged to have with us Dr. Himangshu Das. Good afternoon, sir. We welcome you. A brief introduction for Sir. Sir is currently the Director of National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Multiple Disabilities, Chennai. He has been contributing enormously to the disability rehabilitation and is passionately driven for empowerment, inclusion, quality of life, and empathic services for persons with special needs. He has been associated with the fraternity for over 20 years now and have played key roles from the clinical, administrative, policymaking, and academic perspectives. Sir has served the NIMH, CRC at Bhopal and Srinagar, Indira Gandhi National Open University, and SASR, which is an RCI accredited teacher training institute for intellectual disability, Autism Spectrum Disorder, and cerebral palsy. Sir was instrumental in setting up 2 composite rehabilitation centers and 3 district disability rehabilitation in India. Sir has presented numerous papers across the globe and has organized several symposium workshops for persons associated with this fraternity. We welcome you, sir. Before we move on, I would like to brief you about the upcoming event. May I have the screen share, please? We have Ms. Mary Borua as a speaker for the upcoming event in conversation with. As for Deepranjani, we have established ourselves in January 2022 with our focus on employment generation, vocational training, consultancy, and OPD services. Let me now hand over to Dr. Amrita Panda, MD and founder of our institute. Ma'am, welcome you to moderate the event, and also Priyanka, who's a psychologist with Deepranjani, for co-moderation. Thank you once again, and a warm welcome to all of you present here.
Thank you, Madhuparna. It's our privilege to have Dr. Das today. He needs no introduction. He is such a personality in the field of special needs. Sir, welcome once again and a very good afternoon. Can we have Sir at the center, please? The spotlight to the Sir, to Sir's screen, please.
He is spotlighted, ma'am. You both are spotlighted.
Yeah. Sir, I mean, this whole journey of in conversation with, we are going through it for last 3 months, and it's been a privilege to talk to different personalities in the field of special needs with different very important topics. So today we will be talking about the freedom of choice and individuality of individuals with ASD. With your very long journey in the field of special needs, you have witnessed very radical changes in the field of autism. So to start with, I would request you to share the perspective of the changes that you have witnessed in the field of autism in last so many years.
The answer is going to be very long. Is it okay, ma'am?
Yes, absolutely, sir. We are here to hear, I mean, we are all very excited to hear you today.
So when you talk of the changes that, not me actually, the country and the globe has seen at large, And when I want to specifically mention India, you have to categorize it under maybe 10, 15 heads. To start with, the first would be what we have achieved or the journey in our identification and certification process. We have achieved a lot in a sense that now we have the protocol for assessment of autism or scale for autism being developed in India, specifically the Indian tool with the help of AIMS and National Institute for Intellectual Disability at Secunderabad. However, flip side of it, 90% of the districts in our country doesn't have a clinical psychologist to implement that assessment tool. That's what is the total progress that we have made. We know we have UDID portal. We know what to do to get our certificate and identification. But when you do not have a clinical psychologist at the district level, you have to run to the state institution or run to a medical college, get a clinical psychologist. That's the progress that I have seen as far as identification and certification goes. The second come the acts and the policies of, say, Ministry of Health, the DEPWD, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, and the Ministry of Education. There had been massive change when you talk about acts and policies. When you delete it from grassroots level implementation, say Ministry of Health, very specific, very nice intervention center, we call it District Early Intervention Center. Almost 5 years back, this project was launched. By now, we are expecting at least 700 district early intervention center from the Ministry of Health to come up in every district. But unfortunately, as of today, maybe 200 of them are functioning. And actually, if you see at grassroots level, having a psychologist or a properly trained clinical psychologist, they would be very few in number. When you talk about DEPWD, massive changes in terms of their schemes, in terms of their projects and policies. But when you talk of the share of autism or institutions working for autism in the schemes and provisions of DEPWD, you will find it to be proportionally very negligible when you compare it in terms of the prevalence and the incidence of autism. So I can show you a success in terms of numbers, which may be very, very high. But when you talk it in terms of percentage of share in terms of the prevalence and the incidence of autism, you will find that to be also very low. Progress in terms of Ministry of Education in terms of policy is also very good. I had this slide long prepared by the name Special Education Fighting for Space to be presented across different forums for Ministry of Education. Now you have the Supreme Court order, the CBSE order that every school must have special educators. And this order is almost now 3 years old. But as of today, less than 1% schools in the country has got special educators there. We are very hopeful in terms of at least we have got the legislations in place, the policies in place. Talking about the human resource development, it's difficult to say. It was a long fight when the field of autism fought to have diploma in special education autism program. And it was a heartbreaking fight for another 10 years to get into the level of bachelor's in autism program, which I was very much part of these movements. And first time in the country, we got to the level of starting MEd in special education in Autism Spectrum Disability program. Today, if you see, the diploma program has been now merged with the program of intellectual disability. So that is a setback now. Instead of going forward, we have come back. And I'm very much doubtful or worried what would be the future of the BEd and the MEd level program. When you talk of the HRD development and progress in terms of speech therapy, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, or clinical psychology or rehab psychology courses, when you talk of their syllabus in terms of progress, I'm not very satisfied. They have not been changing quite oftenly, and it has been poor. Yes, after they do pass out, they start practicing and they do learn. And most of this learning are from parents or experienced people like you or your colleagues. Then coming to the services, we have early intervention, educational services, skilling and employment services. There's tremendous amount of progress, no doubt, in all of them. But in terms of proportionate share of number of persons with autism availing this kind of services, or number of blocks or number of districts, those who have a solid foundation of early intervention, education and skilling and employment, I'd like to restrict them to very many metro cities only. So
absolutely,
that's also a progress. Coming to the rehabilitation part, I put it up in terms of, say, self-help groups, parent home, parent associations, rehab facilities, long-term facilities, halfway home, or short stay facilities. They are there. We have got very minuscule kind of facilities with not so good facilities. People are somehow managing this kind of facilities. But in terms of scientific term, when you talk of a kind of facility that is required for persons with autism, in terms of space requirement, the fire safety requirement, or many other health and other safety measure requirement, recreation leisure requirement, or space requirement, the number would be very, very less. It may come down to say only 10 in the whole country, which presumably we need to have, say, our demand should be around, say, 700 in the country. Right now we are at 10. That also I feel very, very satisfied, because getting to this level of 10 was also a very difficult task for a long, long time. And then coming to the level of attitude, for me, this attitudinal change or attitude fight towards change of or attitude is also largely in the segment of teachers of Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, one, and number two is the metro cities, parents and their colleagues. So they are working like advocates, they are working like freedom fighters, always on the move in terms of WhatsApp or social media. But by and large, if you see the whole country, we have not been able to have any such program for bringing in a societal attitudinal change as far as autism or any of the developmental disability goes. Coming to the sensitization programs, sensitivity level of the people, the ministry central government had a program provision for sensitization of all the stakeholders, including police personnel, the court personnel, the panchayati level personnel, the teachers and others. But unfortunately, the project is on hold right now for about 2 years. And before that also, if you proportionally see the spending on it, a number of programs being held in the country, when you say 50 programs were held in the year, say 2020, for example, 50 programs with the population of say 50% each doesn't serve any purpose in this country unless we have huge media and a nationwide kind of flagship program or a campaign coming in at the level of the something like polio or COVID or something like that. We don't see that also much coming up. Talking about empathy development programs, for long we had been talking to CBSE and many of these educationists that we must have some kind of educational programs being inbuilt in the school system itself at the state and the central government through NCERT or SCERT, where students going to regular school will have an empathy development program. We now call them empathy engineering program. That has not happened so far. So wherever you get a good school, a good principal or a good coordinator, there you see children having empathetic values for our people. But the credit doesn't go to the system as such, because such kind of people are less in number. So that also needs to be geared up. Coming to self-help group, they are also very few. Like I appreciate effort of your organization or effort of say many of these proactive organization in the field of autism. But when I look back at the role of all of us in terms of promoting self-help group across the country, then I give you very less score. I am also part of the NGO process, but if you see like you become part of an organization and then you actually do not, I think, want all districts of say West Bengal to have a center for autism. That's how self-help group movement got also restricted because of some kind of supremacy that all of us wanted to have in terms of running different NGOs and associations. Coming to parent empowerment program, I am very sad. The reason being, when you started different programs like B.Ed, D.Ed, and early intervention courses or psychology or many of other programs, initially I used to always talk to people in different forums that our parents and our siblings must become professionals. Now, when you look back at the statistics, how many of our parents and how many of our siblings actually have become sort of professionals in true sense, that percentage is very, very less. So all of us want good therapists and good professionals and good teachers working for, say, children with autism or developmental disabilities, but you do not want your able-bodied children to ever become a professional in the field. So how do you expect other people in the field to take up such programs? It's only very recently in last 2 years, I am seeing the seats are by and large getting filled. Before that, my journey of 25 years, I had been seeing vacant seats to the tune of 50% across the country. So I would say parent empowerment is also very much restricted in places. Technology and ICT had been a progress in terms of developments. In terms of development of technology, ICT and softwares, yes, I say thumbs up. But in terms of implementation of technology and ICT, it's in a very poor state. Also involvement of corporates. Very few corporates were very happy with it. Corporates have taken initiative in terms of CSR or in terms of employment. That's a happy part of it. But when you talk of the largest strata of all the corporates coming in and pushing in their efforts, I'm not very happy about it. Now, lastly, coming to the research and development part, as a professional, I would say that's in a very, very poor state. Whether you are working in an NGO or you are working in a university or you are working in a rehabilitation institute running different courses, research and development, we see very, very less in the country. So that is one area we want people to be doing PhDs or pre-PhD programs and definitely become part of the whole mission for research and development, because that will pave the way for and lay the foundation for future development in the field. Right now, whatever we are doing are all, I would like to say, based on our local experiences. Unless we do good research and come up with best practices supported by good research backup, that's one area we cannot actually forego in the coming years. Thank you so much, ma'am. This is my small experience as far as the field goes. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So you have so nicely touched almost all the areas of development, and it's so meticulous. So, sir, adding to it, I would like to understand that in the last 10 years, maybe 8 to 10 years, the number of prevalence of autism has drastically increased. So, what is your understanding? Or, I mean, some people have said that there is more awareness, there is more reporting, parents are more aware these days. But I mean, even beyond that, even beyond awareness, we see the numbers are increasing. And in our country, we really do not have any specific, any correct data on the number of such people in our community. So what is your take on that?
I wholly agree. In terms of number of people, those who are getting certificate and getting diagnosed, that number is definitely increasing. And thanks to the awareness level that is growing, or Ministry of Education or Health or the Ministry of Social Justice taking initiative. But this matter of incidence and prevalence cannot be attributed to a recent past. No. Because if you had only this awareness concept, then we should have seen, say, in the age group of say 50 or age group of 60 or age group of 70 or 80 or 40 or 30, we should have seen the equal number of children with autism or persons with autism. That's not the case. That's not the case, definitely. So every new year, you see the prevalence and incidence is increasing. That's a very, very alarming thing. And this is globally a correct phenomenon. So awareness is fine, sensitization is fine, certification is fine, but definitely there are some kind of environmental genetic factors which must be attributed to such a significant level of increase, which are increasing to the tune of say 100% per 2 years or 100% per 3 years. That kind of increase in prevalence or incidence cannot simply be attributed to awareness programs. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. I think there is a network issue at ma'am's end. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'll just take it up from here till ma'am comes back, and then I'll just again pass it on to her. So I think what ma'am was trying to understand, since you have been heading so many institutes of so many types of disabilities. I mean, you have headed an organization with physical disability, you have headed an organization with visual impairment and intellectual disability as well. Do you see the nature of awareness and reporting is different in terms of physical and mental disabilities? Or do you feel that it's overall the same scenario? Like, are we a bit more okay with physical disability, or are we a bit more not okay with intellectual ones? How do you feel about it?
We are far behind than the physical disabilities. A certain aspect certain aspect I may not be sensitized enough, but I am definitely aware of. Say a person with blindness or hearing impairment or some kind of physical disability, or for that matter, people with mental illness, they have become so easy to be perceived. So I may not have much of sensitization against this population, but I am definitely aware. So they do not need, say, professional judgment to say what's different. When you talk of developmental disabilities, especially autism, say, specific learning disability, or the milder form or borderline form of intellectual disabilities, or sometimes ADHDs, or many such emotional disorders, or many such disorders where people do not know exactly what's different or what's wrong or what's challenging. There, I think we do not have awareness and sensitization. We only have a society which sometimes becomes sympathetic, sometimes empathetic, sometimes apathic, sometimes they are angry. So that cannot be leveled as any form of awareness that we see.
Right, sir. And I think most of it can be attributed to the visibility we have to the population. I mean, in terms of any marginalized population, we can see the varied range of visibility that they get. So, as you just rightly mentioned in the beginning, that they are not like, we don't have an empathy development group in the schools. We don't have people with disability, being in the textbook, playing, being a part of any poetry or anything. So we don't know that they exist, at least from the grassroots level. So once we go out, we see that okay, there are some people different than us. So sir, there is another thing, like we had a question from one of our registered participant, a very basic question, sir, and from that I would like to take up a few more questions in thread. So the person asked that, can autism be cured? So I would just like you to take that up.
Sometime I don't use the word cure, but sometime when I see my own experience and clients, I'm sometimes forced to say no, never, and sometimes I am forced to say yes, always. So it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum, and there are a lot of factors. We'll know about these factors after a little bit of time. So the individual factors, the family factors, the social factor, the services factor, the sort of training factor, so many factors sort of culminate into autism in such intrinsic and such interrelated way. We are far beyond understanding of what actually is going on with autism as far as the nervous system goes. Absolutely. So the world's fastest reader today, world's book of world record holder, fastest reader today, I'm avoiding her name. She is my client. She's from US. So she reported to us at the age of 3 years with severe autism. We have got videos and everything to prove all those things. Severe autism, we have got videos and everything. And within 6-7 years of intervention with that family in US and with our help or whatever, that girl is now the team member of school gymnastic, team member of school soccer, and champion in art, and world's fastest reader, and definitely A+ in all the academic areas. And last time when I met her, 4 months back, she was in India. 4 months back, I saw typical characteristics of some mild characteristics of autism in her. And our effort was to bring her back to India and make her relate to as many people possible in the family, close circuit, where she would have maximum amount of interaction with different kind of environment, society, place, people, and everything. And when I visited her after 3 months, I found those characteristics almost went away. Right. That's kind of positive example that I can give. On the flip side, we have, again, a lot of examples to say. I don't want to explain, where we got children with autism. Those were much milder when we met them, say 20 years back, and now they are very severe and very sort of bad shape in terms of productivity, quality of life, or activities of daily living, or being on the job. So the answer is very difficult. It's not a very simple answer to be given. It is not like an illness or a disease that you can say they will be cured, they will not be cured. I can only tell one thing to everyone in this forum, that you don't know what is going to be. But today we know we have 24 hours to invest on on the child or on the person, if this 24 hours today is spent very, very meaningfully, very, very productively, very, very professionally, then of course, you may have a child with autism with much, much overt features with autism than what he used to be, say, a year back. That would be my take on such kind of questions from parents.
Right, sir. And I think the idea that we have about developmental disability, since we are not that aware about it, the idea of illness and disorders or conditions are not very clear to us. And I think when we get asked question like, can autism be cured? And we focus on the answer that the autism symptoms can be managed, I think that is the bridge that we want to walk upon, that it's nothing that needs to be cured, but we need to program something that suits their needs and they can function better along with it. So, sir, along with that, we have another question tagged in that with autism, we see that there are different patterns of behavior that emerge at various levels of life. So there can be some patterns that were there in the childhood and then they just went away when they become teenagers, and that might just come back again when they're adults, or there might be different patterns, and these patterns are usually rigid, a bit fixed, and they might not always be unhealthy, unhelpful, but people still are not very okay with the idea that there would be a time when there would be a pattern. So what's your take on it? Like, how does the patterns look like usually?
First thing that all of us need to understand, in different domains, a sensory domain, emotional, behavioral, cognitive, speech, communication, whatever domain we select, and we talk of pattern, let us be very clear that globally also, and especially in India, it cannot be a norm or a standardized thing.
Right.
Because the diversity in India, especially, is so high in terms of family, in terms of services, in terms of the child in general. So much of diversity. So such study of developing a kind of a norm that how autism people will develop in terms of different patterns is very, very difficult to say. Diverse population. So there are so many parameters. We need to understand all those parameters first and maybe deal with all those parameters as best possible, and also understand that the rate of change of these patterns of development across different lifespan is actually had been directly proportional to certain critical factors, like say the family factor, the training factor, the services, and the social empathy factor. So more of intervention on these kind of domains are able to directly influence, or they are directly proportional to the pattern of development that we see in children. Say for some of the patterns may be very difficult to intervene. Say a pattern within the child itself. When you talk of within the child itself, pattern may be dependent on, say, severity of autism. The pattern may be dependent on the IQ level, the mental health condition, and the associated conditions of, say, sensory integration, visual impairment, hyperactivity, epilepsy, or metabolic factors, etc. Such kind of factors may not be in our hand much to intervene. But when you talk of the other dependent factors, they are like, say, family, the acceptance level of the family, the coping stage of the family, the resourcefulness of the family, the parenting style of the family. When you talk of the training and the services factor, say, I quite often see children with autism not getting any service. Not getting any services, I would say, are 95%. Yes. So 5% of the children with autism who are getting services, so out of those 5%, I would say 90% of them are actually getting unidisciplinary services. Some parents are getting stuck up to a special educator, some parents are getting stuck up to a occupational therapist, some are getting stuck up to a speech therapist. So we call that kind of services as unidisciplinary services. Then in the cities or in some bigger cities or metro cities, we see multidisciplinary services. The parents are taking services from multiple different professionals. Why I tell them as multidisciplinary is these kind of professionals are not connected with each other. Like, I do not know what the occupational therapist is doing. He is not aware what the speech therapist is doing. So all of us are working, but our protocol, our programs, our assessment are not being shared or dependent on each other's activities. That kind of services are going on. Thirdly, you see in the last 10 years, we have some kind of institutions which have come up with, say, interdisciplinary services, where all these different professionals are now getting to talk to each other. They're sharing their assessment, they're sharing their projects, they're sharing their training program, protocol, do's, don'ts, and everything. So they're kind of some kind of interrelationship is there. But however, what we actually want and what we actually envisage, we call it a transdisciplinary program. Transdisciplinary program is a program which is developed in consultation with everyone. So we plan everything and merge all the services or the disciplines in an activity. Supposing the child is eating, or you are sort of training the child in eating. So there itself, occupational therapy programs are inbuilt in that activity itself. Special education is inbuilt, physiotherapy is inbuilt, speech therapy is inbuilt, behavior modification or psychologist program is inbuilt. Those kind of services we are now envisaging, and we call them transdisciplinary services. So coming back again, the child factors, the family factors, the training and services factor, and lastly, the social empathy factor. Because wherever we are, the more the positive the society is, the child is comfortable, the child grows better. There is something called cellular development with everyone. So each of our cell is interconnected with each other. And science today says that all our cellular bodies actually connects to all other human beings and all other organisms across the world in a different way. So this year's the Nobel Prize is also on that. So how everything is getting connected in terms of waves or particles or whatever. So we have a deeper connection. So social empathy becomes very crucial in that case. So unless all these dependent factors of pattern of development are being taken care of, it's very difficult to have a say on the normative factors, what you say. So you may get a very good child with all these dependent factors being taken care of, and sometimes these dependent factors cannot be taken care of, and the child has not been doing well in terms of pattern of development. And these patterns are always sometimes increasing and decreasing and deviating. You never know how these things are actually progressing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think I would like to ask a question with some specific behaviors. Like, we have a few children with hand clapping behavior. We have a few children who cannot take loud sounds, so they will put their ears, hands on their ears in anticipation whenever they go out. And some of them are stimming behavior, and some of them are not. So, sir, the approach with which we are trying to understand and deal with these, patterns, do you see that there is also a component of like observer's discomfort, like when we are treating an individual or dealing with an individual with certain behavioral issues or aspects? uh, we often, like, even we have seen professionals and parents putting more focus on what they want or what they envision as being right for the person. So how do you think we can come out of that subjective bias that, how people should behave, and think of the best on part of the person and not us? What is your take on that, sir?
Neither I want to be a parent activist in this particular forum, nor I want to be a behavior modification practicing clinical or rehab psychologist. Because some of the parents these days, when you see Facebook, WhatsApp, or social media, they would be very, very aggressive as to all these things must be allowed. How does it matter? This is my child and this is his world and things like that. On the contrary, you have a lot of psychologists, clinical psychologists, and rehabilitation psychologists. They want all these things to go away completely. So my take on will be somewhere in between. So we have to really understand how we are actually reacting to all these things. Say, when you talk of it, observer's discomfort. Now, I want to ask all these parents and everyone, all professionals, have you ever asked those observers why that observer was reacting in a different way? So I had this experience of having a child with me, developmental disability, and I had this study of understanding observers' discomfort. So I got to know it was not always that they were angry. So earlier, I used to be very angry. Why this person is looking at my child this way? So I felt like screaming and shouting to that observer, whatever it is. And that's why I took up this study. And over the years, I realized after asking many of such observers, that very few of them were actually angry with my child. Many of them were very sad. So their discomfort was because they were very sad. And there were observers, those who were showing different kind of a behavior because they were feeling very helpless. They were feeling we are not able to help this child, and that's why this observer behavior is not appropriate. And then there were observers who were looking at the child and staring at the child because of some kind of inquisitiveness, because they have seen this kind of child for the first time and they wanted to know what's wrong with the child and how can they be part of it. And there are also observers which had this natural conditioning of attention. So anybody being not following a norm is definitely likely to sort of have attention of other people. So observer discomfort also needs to be analyzed first, understood in its true perspective, that not every observer's behavior is enemy to persons with autism or family to autism. That is the first thing that we need to understand. And also we need to come to a level of making parents understand that sometimes I see parents as an observer herself would accept everything that the child is doing at home. When nobody is there, then she is perfectly fine with all the behavior of the child. Now, when relatives comes or the child is taken to say McDonald's or KFC or some restaurant or some cinema or mall, then all of a sudden the parent totally changes. So for a child with autism, now this is the same mother. My mother remains the same, or my father remains the same, my sibling remaining the same. How can they introduce a norm to me all of a sudden just like this? Then similarly, when I look at my colleagues, because I have interacted with persons with autism, same behavior, two families, one family say we have taken children to malls, say, one parent is reacting very harshly and heavily for a stimming behavior or for a non-adaptive behavior. Other parent is absolutely fine with it. So there is no norm as to this child can see. I also did the same thing. He also did the same thing. My mother is screaming and shouting at me. And this child is everybody is allowing this child to do whatever this child is doing. So we need to also talk on this kind of having a midway for all the parents, that you cannot be this side of the ladder or this side of the ladder. Then also sympathetic social environment is very much necessary with such all behaviors. We have apathetic social environment that also needs some kind of address. And above all, I think all the parents and professionals need to have an innate understanding of the ABC model of functionalisis of behavior management. So every behavior, socially adaptive or maladaptive or whatever you say, according to psychology, will always have a function, always have a purpose. So when you do antecedent behavior and consequence analysis of any of this behavior, you will definitely come to the function of the behavior. Now, when you know the function of the behavior, then your perspective on discomfort of the sort of observer changes. Because when I know that this particular child is performing this way for, say, a samosa, and this particular child is performing this way to get my attention. This particular child is performing this way, say, for self-stimulation. This child is performing this way to escape from, say, this particular mall or this particular shop. So once you know the function, the observer will immediately have a different perspective to his behavior or whatever he is doing. That is one thing we need to take up. And also importance of understanding the behavioral norm of autism, that the difficulties that they have. So intellectually, a child may know this is not right for me to do here, but there may be conditions where the child is not failing to control himself. So it's not that the child is not aware. We have cases where we have children where they are not aware that their behavior is not socially adaptive, but we have a lot of such other cases also where the child is very much aware. And at a cooler time, the child will tell you, sit and tell you that I did this is wrong. But at that moment of time, I was not able to control myself. So it's a very complex thing. And also impact of impact on the carers, sorry. So more than the child, I think carers take up this observers' discomfort issue more seriously. That is one area they we need to talk on. Whether you want the child to be having, say, less maladaptive behavior because it will help the child, or you want to have less of maladaptive behavior because you want your comfort. So once you are very clear about the child's benefit, then your analysis and intervention and the way you plan the projects totally differs. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful, sir. Wonderful. Thanks a lot. We have Amrita ma'am back with us. Ma'am, will you please take it up from here?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Priyanka. Sir, we all know that in case of autism, we have this whole issue of the fact that this is not the fit. Many a times it's not a visible condition. So the difference between disability, which is visible and which is invisible, had been there. I mean, in all the sectors, like maybe with the parents, with the society, with the institution, and with the way they were taken up by the community, the society, everywhere. So, what is your understanding about it?
At the level of awareness, maybe I give a lot of score to the visible disabilities. Say, I also told about, say, blindness or, say, physically challenged population. At the level of awareness, maybe they are scoring much more than invisible disabilities. But when you talk of sensitization, whether it is visible or invisible, the score is very pathetic for everyone. Not that
True.
blind people are getting sensitive behaviors from everybody around, not that hearing impaired people are getting good behavior, not that physically challenged people are getting good behavior from people. So as far as empathy and sensitization goes, all the disabilities are in the same place. There is basically a cultural and philosophical thought to it. So now when you talk of a society who is in crisis, a society who is aspiring to achieve more and more, that kind of a society will always have more of competition everywhere. So your child goes to the school, so you want your child to be first in everything. So when you want your child to be first in everything, means my child will come second. Means somebody else's child will always come third. So that's how you always have this fairness of judging everything by the tops in everything, toppers in everything. So definitely, whether you are poor or you are dark or you are tall or you are overweight or you are underweight or you are high vision, low vision, hearing or whatever, everywhere, wherever there will be deviations, less likely a struggling society like ours will be sympathetic or empathetic enough. So how do you make a society, I'll not say religious, more empathy based, more spiritual based, and more cooperative in nature? And that's how that will be the route for future for our children, because there are many countries, I have visited many countries, and there are societies, those who had been having a different kind of a culture altogether. The closest neighbor is Bhutan, say. In Bhutan, it's altogether a different world. So for them, nobody is aspiring to buy a Mercedes, nobody is aspiring to buy a big house and things like that. Then they are all happy-go-lucky. World's one of the top 5 happiest country in the world. And when you talk of a society being sensitized, empathized, or whatever in Bhutan, they are very okay with it. So likewise, there are many countries in Europe. Our students are very good, very well accepted. So it is not about awareness, training, or whatever. The struggle that all of us are having, mental health survey clearly indicates, WHO or whatever survey, by next, say, 5 years, say 1 out of 4 are going to be having mental health issues. So we are part of it. So such a society where everyone is having mental health issues and we are struggling to have our piece of life, you are expecting those population who are actually leading a miserable life in themselves, And if you are expecting that kind of a population to be empathetic, sympathetic, and sensitized towards anybody who else is suffering, it's not a right demand from the society. So every parent with autism also needs to understand their expectation from me. Are you even aware I am also in the same phase because I have lost my job today? Somebody has lost his home. Somebody is having family issues. So it's altogether
Absolutely.
a critical affair. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Sir, and I was also wondering, I mean, in Deepranjani, we work with employment generation. And when it comes to employment generation in our country with special needs, uh, when we approach the companies, the corporates, when we are talking about open employment, uh, in the inclusive workspace, they have accepted, I mean, those companies who have already accepted special needs, they are mostly with physical disability. The intellectual disability people, they haven't even, I mean, thought about it because it's beyond. I mean, it's not possible. They have always thought it's not possible to include them. So the company like us, and I'm sure there are many such other companies working in India who are working with intellectual disability employment and open employment. And we face a lot of hindrance in doing so. With your experience, I mean, you have been to the entire globe and you have seen the uh, progress in employment sector in India with special needs. Uh, what is your suggestion to people like us who are actually focusing on intellectual disability employment generation?
We had divided our fight into three categories. One is a fight of employing the employable by showcasting the profitability of having our population. Say, I have multiple examples. Say, lemon tree movement.
Yes.
So the lemon tree movement is an example of profit from our sector. So have our
Absolutely.
we have multiple such examples. We showcast our talent, we showcast our productivity, video record them, and then try to give them the concept of economy and things like that, and gradually say they take on. This is one. Second is a kind of a no profit, no loss kind of a venture. That this kind of population we train in such a way and adjust them into job matching in such a way that this person is not going to be much of profit making for your place, but at the same time, it is not going to create any loss to you. So that is one kind of a segment that we are working. Because I don't want parents and institutions to mug up everything together. We'll lose the war. Because some institution may be in the category A, some institution may come up for the category B. Now there is a third category. Third category is a investment category. So we are basically having a profit-making body. So we are ready to invest on something social. So in terms of social responsibility, we are investing on some children. So their productivity and economy may not match. Doesn't matter. It is a part of investment. So government of India will give say tax benefit or some kind of awards or some kind of provident fund benefits and other benefits. So that is for the third category. So because we had not been making a movement in terms of understanding these three categories, dividing in these three categories, and also not understanding the skilling India movement properly, not connecting to the corporate sector. Say today audience are sitting here, if I ask them what is SCPWD, people would not know. Skill Council for Persons with Disability.
Right.
Now, if I question Skill Council of Persons with Disability, out of say 5,000 skill jobs that is in the country identified by different corporate sectors, how many of them have been aligned or modified for training for persons with autism? They will run away. After that, if I ask them a question, out of the modified and adapted skill courses for persons with autism, how many have been granted to be run by different institutions? They will further run away. And after that, if I ask them how many of them actually passed out from the skill council of courses, the figure will be very, very poor. Now, when I talk about NGOs like yours, I have many such organizations. When I talk to them, do you have any connection with the skill council or DPWD and trying to get the courses of the corporates approved by the corporates? They would say no. So we are rigid as to what kind of program we want to give them, what kind of skilling we want to give them. Corporates are rigid as to what kind of skill they want from us. So there is a gap, and I hope within few years this gap will be well understood, because now we are working on, say, the
Yeah.
concept of apprenticeship, concept of internship, and we are now
Yes.
trying to bridge the gap so that corporates and our NGOs are coming up together, and gradually the movement from sheltered workshop model to, say, a supported employment model, and further to an open employment model, because it has to be
Right.
a journey from
Gradual.
shelter to
Yeah.
supported to open employment. I'm
Mm.
hopeful things will be better in future. But the concern is furthermore, if you see the Government of India Gazette, so we have, say, the 4%, 1% of reservation. The first percent is for physical disability, second is visual, third is, say, orthopedic. The 4% of disability, 1% of the job across all the cadres are for the other disabilities. Now, intellectual disability, autism, cerebral palsy, multiple disability, mental illness, specific learning disability, all these are getting 1% of job reservation. Now, what is the prevalence and incidence and population of persons with visual disability vis-a-vis this group? So persons with visual disability are getting 1% of reservation, and this 5-6 group of disabilities are getting 1% reservation. So that's also a very big matter. So reservation policy also needs to be reframed in terms of the prevalence and incidence. So it's a big challenge, and also to the parents also, when we are looking at, say, corporates or anybody XYZ, I have been trying to counsel parents. You are also running an organization. Say, why not we as a family start some kind of a entrepreneurship program, some kind of a shop or mall or something. Let's start a business. Same in the same formula, that business may be planned as a profit making, may be planned as a non-profit making, may be planned as an investment. Because anyway, I have got clinics where persons with autism are coming and paying me, say, monthly 10 to 50,000 rupees a month. I'm not joking, that's the right figure. You get 10,000 to 50,000, they are giving me. And I am counseling them, please invest this on a shop or on a entrepreneurship, and you need not to come here. My people will come there within 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Child will be settled there. Why you are spending 20, 30, 40,000 giving to me every month? They are also somewhat not ready. So that says, when a parent is not ready, when a sibling is not ready, do not expect the government or the corporate to be ready. So unless we are able to showcase multiple such examples where parents and families or group of parents have demonstrated a lot of such activities where our children are performing jobs or job roles with profit or with neutrality or with marginalized investment program, less likely we'll have good achievement in corporates. I'll give you a small example. When I was the director at Chennai, so I had this access to 4, we call them in the government, we call them attendants, multitasking staff. So I am entitled to have 4. I am normally very, very independent person. I knew I do not need any one of them. So I hired 4 children with intellectual disabilities from our institute itself. So they were with me. And after about 3, 4, 5 months, the guests, those who had been coming to my office for a long, long time, they had observed this change. The way this population was greeting my guests, the way they were serving tea or coffee or water, the way they were cleaning the table, the way they were very happy in showcasing that you are our guest, we are here to feed you, or we are here to serve you. And with the glow that they will greet these people, everybody started sort of appreciating that. And after 4 years, we had almost 40 people gone from my office. So I'll bring in people here, and all those guest principals of different colleges, corporates, or other people, they will come after 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. They will take 1 or 2 child. So I had all 40 gone. So I had I had a lot of demands coming in. So we would appreciate parents and everyone here. So you are working somewhere in the office, or I am working somewhere, everywhere. If we can start demonstrating, I think there is a good hope for future. But the demonstration must be taken initiative by parents and siblings. So I rarely see siblings coming up. I rarely see parents coming up, except very few. You cannot say Mary Barua Madam is doing this. Delhi is a state. It is not a block or it is not a town. So there are people those who are doing very well. But when you talk of larger initiative where we have gone in last 30 years, I would say no. Wherein I have got parents. Once a parent was coming to NHFDC, that's National Handicap Finance and Development Corporation. It's a government of India body which gives loans to persons with disabilities at a very subsidized cost. This parent was coming there for 2, 3, 4, 5 years for getting a loan. And nobody was catering to her. She was a very, very poor, a beggar kind of a lady. And we went there for some kind of a intervention once, and we got that lady and we asked her, what do you want? She said, I am coming here for last 5 years for 50,000 rupees. They are not giving me. Give me 50,000, I'll return it to you within just 2, 3 months. So she with the child had started a small kind of a kirana shop, and they were doing it. The child will be waiting there whenever there's a customer that he is not able to handle. He will say, Amma, Ajav, and Amma will come running, and it is going on in a small community. So multiple such examples are there. We set up a Nescafe outlet in Kashmir long 20, 30 years back with 5, 6 parents. And then it became a very fun experience because all those 4 children were, not children, 4 adults were fighting with themselves. The moment you take a Coca-Cola, this particular child knows this is my sort of sticker, or what you call it, whatever, my token. And he will tease all others, see, this customer is mine and he's taking my, by that time, by the time the manager issues the token, before that only your coffee is ready, or your limca or coke is ready. So fast. They were all the time fighting about themselves to serve, and it became a famous place for everyone for fastest delivery time, because they are all trying, mere paas kaun aayega, who is coming to me, sabse pehle mujhe jaake dena hai, and they will never do a mistake. They are already fighting, so there is no question of mistake. These are my tokens. So we have a lot of good examples, but those are very few in numbers. We want people to take on these responsibilities, and I hope so. Once we start doing things, corporate will do, because the signal now in last few years have been very, very positive. So we hope things will take a good turn.
Thank you so much, sir. That was so enlightening. And I mean, before we move to the question and answers from the participants, I would like to understand from you, sir. We have been talking about parental awareness, parental family awareness, sensitization since long. And we are hoping for years that parents will be more proactive, and they will take up responsibilities, because it's a truth, and no offense intended to the parents, that most of the parents, they want that the institutions would take up the responsibilities. They would like the institution to take up responsibilities, and they will just follow. They are not in a position to lead. And we have been hoping for many years that this pattern would change, and we are waiting. And I believe that in the field of rehabilitation also, as you mentioned in your while answering your first question, that initially, sir, most of the organizations, the NGOs in particular, were from the families of the special needs. And now we can see that even people, even the rehab professionals, mental health professionals, special educators, they are coming up with such initiatives who are not directly a family of a special needs. So, sir, I would like to understand, is there any such awareness or training program which is coming up from the government, of intending to cater to parents specifically? Because I do not see a hope that this whole slumber is going to end any I mean, in recent future. So is there anything that we can plan, or is there anything that is already being planned by the government or by the national institutions?
Actually, ma'am, they come and go. They come and go because the responses of parents had not been good enough. The problem with the metro parents are that they read and they study a lot from different sources, maybe right sources, maybe wrong sources, or whatever. They feel a foundation level program is not good enough for them. So they are very correct in thinking that way. At the same time, they feel a higher level of educational program is also not suitable for them. So this is one very major dilemma that we are having, what kind of programs to be framed for a parent. Now, when you plan a program for a rural India, that doesn't suit urban India. So supposing we had this program of FCED, Foundation Course in Education for Children with Disabilities. So it is just a 3 months program. Did not succeed much. Chalani. Then we thought, okay, maybe the B.Ed program people will take up. So B.Ed we nahi chala. Then we took up diploma program. वो भी nahi chala. So I really don't know. We can come up with programs, but are parents really interested, or they want to be in the firefighting zone? Whatever problems they have today, they want this kind of a solution. Tomorrow, they want this kind of a solution. For that, you cannot have different programs. So if a parent is ready or a parent is counseled enough, say, the problem here is, you see, I have a lot of parents doing very well, but when you talk
Absolutely.
the coping stages, when you talk properly, interact properly, go deeper, then you realize most of these parents have not actually climbed the ladder of coping stages. There are parents who have spent
True.
20 years and still in the stage of shock. There are parents who are in the stage of denial. There are parents, those who are in the stage of anger. There are parents, those who are in the stage of, say, shopping behavior. Parents at the grieving stage, parents at the angry stage, parents at the depression stage. So those kind of parents are less likely to be part of a training program, training module. So how do you have a system where we'll be working with a parents, bring him to the level of, say, acceptance first, and then you take on the training programs? Because if you're not accepting the child, then why you will take up a training program? Because for you, this child is going to be fine tomorrow. So training program doesn't work. So definitely, I'm very sure Government of India is thinking on that line. And every 5 years, we come up with some kind of a program. And if not that, a lot of NGOs and a lot of national institutes also keep conducting parent training programs. Now, for rural India, what kind of training program we do, what kind of training program we do for urban India, it's a critical question. Moreover, I have been doing this kind of training program. So I go as a special educator. This parent comes and wants me to be teaching her syllabus of MOT, Masters in Occupational Therapy. And I go to a training program to teach them, say, activities of daily living. And this lady wants me to teach at the level of Masters in Speech and Hearing. So it's a critical issue. So I wish all the parents would be actually definitely diligent from the perspective of coping stages and coping skills first. And once they reach a level of, say, good coping stage, then maybe introducing a formal program would be very better. And our success also had been with parent-to-parent mentoring has been a real success program. Parent-to-parent mentoring. My early intervention program, 3 years back, Government of India launched this Cross Disability Early Intervention Center. So I was the mentor of that project. NILD Kolkata has started one Cross Disability Early Intervention Center program. Yes. We will be having this kind of facility across the country. There in the Dehradun Center, we opted for parent-mediated intervention and parent-to-parent support program. Those have been very, very successful. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. It was so informative. Priyanka, can we move to the question answers from the participants, please?
Sure.
Can you take over?
Yeah, thank you. So I have one question to ask actually, which is a bit personal. I mean, you have had a very long journey in the field of disability, and you have played various roles. You have headed so many organizations that have really made an impact, sir. So, what made you choose this field? How was your journey of, as an academician or as a practitioner that guided you towards this field? If you could just share, because I'm sure that people are being really inspired by you, by your journey, the way you speak, the way you understand things, sir. Just to have a glance at it. Yeah.
Maybe
Can you hear me, sir?
initially, it was a matter of escape. want to escape my family, I want to escape Assam, and I wanted to somehow escape the humiliation that my relatives were doing with me after my 10 plus 2. So somehow I ran out of Assam of this course of bachelor's degree program in intellectual disability. And there, I think meeting parents, those days there was nothing, 30 years back, there was nothing around. So sitting with parents and children for maybe many hours at a very young age. And those days there is no career concept in the field. Those days you are basically a social worker. So you have no career, you are simply a social worker. So you have dedicated your life to the disability sector, and then parents sitting with you, and then you see helpless people, and sometimes you feel very empowered people. So from then onwards, I think the intrinsic motivation started, and I started learning from maybe senior parents and senior professionals. And the journey had been very good, because I think everyone should know I did a lot of trial in my life. So the first trial was residential facility for adults, commercial residential facility for adults. Second trial was India's first commercial special school, then India's first self-sustaining teacher training education center. So then came self-sustaining, or you can say profit-making clinical service delivery models for adults, then profit-making clinical service delivery model for early childhood, then clinical model merged with special schools. So we have tried on all these models, and I have largely been working in the commercial sector when I worked as a private individual. That's how I realized we must be working with the government. Then I started working with the government. I tried working with 4 national institutions, but somehow I realized that the way forward is very huge, and the country would need to know about the way forward first, and built up a awareness to knowing the way forward, not only knowing what is autism and sensitizing towards disabilities. Say I talk of, say, district DEIC of Ministry of Health. I'd say nobody is aware of, so we are not sort of focusing on that project. Say cross disability early intervention center project of our ministry, people are not knowing, or people are not aspiring that every district must have this kind of a setup. Then we have said Deen Dayal Rehabilitation Scheme of the ministry. If you see Institution of Autism sharing grant of Deen Dayal Rehabilitation Scheme, very few in numbers. People are not applying for grant in aid for special school or vocational centers. Then you have got a SIDDA scheme, an umbrella scheme, or people are not applicant to that, including scholarship applications are very less. Then we have got a ADIP scheme, assistive device distribution scheme, wherein in last 5 years we have pushed in a huge packet of teaching learning material for individuals with autism for across different ages. That scheme has been rolled out. Government of India agreed. Again, I don't think so. Even 1% children with autism in the country has got that kit. And then also DDRC's District Disability Rehabilitation Center, we're hoping in last 25 to 30 years, at least 700 district disability rehabilitation centers should be working in the country. Lack of awareness. Now, I don't think so more than 50 working well in the.
Hello, sir. I think we cannot hear you. Okay. Right. Hello. I think there's an issue at sir's end. We'll let him reconnect, and yeah, I think he'll be back in a while. Meanwhile, may I request Madhuparna ma'am to please announce once again about our upcoming webinar so that we can utilize the time better. Thank you, ma'am.
May I have the screen share, please?
Sorry, ma'am.
We have.
I think there was some interruption.
No worries, sir. Okay, let's have sir again. pin to the screen, please.
Then we have this District Disability Rehabilitation Center, I think. Yeah, District Disability Rehabilitation Center, we are expecting about 700, but now they are, I think, hardly 50 of them are working. Then we have Composite Regional Center being sanctioned for every state, one or two. West Bengal doesn't have one, but I established one in
Sir,
Sikkim.
sorry to interrupt. Sir,
I established
sorry to
one in
interrupt.
Sikkim, and I think about 8 CRCs I have developed across the country. But we are hoping that West Bengal, being a big state, there must be at least 2. And if you see the achievements of national, am I audible, ma'am? Am I audible?
Sir, not clearly, sir. Somehow I think there is a bit of issue, and we could not hear all the fund's name. But we can do one thing, sir. I can get it from you and circulate with our registered people once, and we heard a few. So, can you try to speak?
Yeah. Then we have Skill Council. Then we have National Handicap Finance and Development Corporation issues. The national trust needs to be taken up very seriously. It's not doing very well in the last 4 or 5 years. Social security issues, we are not taking up very seriously. Children with autism, children with high support need. I really don't know how much is being paid by West Bengal government or different governments. But to sustain an adult with special need, having say high support need, there may be huge social security issues. We need a lot of pension documents, and also self-help group development needs to be taken up very seriously. And also human resource development program, as I told you, DED, BEd, MEd, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, psychology programs need to have a lot of fresher input on autism. And also the Chief Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities and State Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities. These are our sort of instruments for implementation of the acts and policies. They need to be taken up very seriously. And also everyone needs to know there is a central board for disability and there is a state board for disability in every state. So those people needs to be contacted and maybe our issue to be raised with them to be taken forward to the government. And also social media needs to be taken up. Thank you, ma'am.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. So my next question was about to be like, we had one question from one of our participants, that how can we financially guide somebody to set up their own franchise business? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Right. So we had the question, you already answered it very nicely. Like, you talked about so many funds and so many people we can get in touch with.
Yes, please repeat the question, ma'am.
Yes, sir. The question from the participant was that how we can help somebody with so are you there? Is he there?
Ma'am, please repeat the question, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was asking that, I mean, the participant asked that how we can help
please
somebody.
Repeat the question, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Please repeat the question, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So the parent asked that how we can help somebody with finances to set up their own business or set up a franchisee. So I think you already covered it with the loan part and connecting to people who can give them the guidance along with that. So we would not take that question up again. So yeah, that was one question. And just give me a second, sir. Yeah. So another question we have here is, sir, how can we train our schools, like people who are inclusive setups, who have shadow teachers or may not have shadow teachers, when they are taking decisions around the people with autism or other disabilities? How can we yeah, how can we train our teachers who are not formally trained, but how can we train them better in dealing with people? Like, what is the idea of, the topic of us here today is the individuality and freedom of choice. So how can we build that network that you can reach to teachers and tell them how to deal with children with special needs? If you could just put some light upon that.
Actually, ma'am, this is a difficult task in hand, which Government of India is aspiring to do for last almost 20-25 years. So first of all, we need to understand, to change this system, we would need a multifaceted approach. The first thing that all of us need to understand, that there is a role of the Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities in every state. That commissioner needs to be very proactive, or we need to activate the commissionerate. That's the first job. Second is the role of the district education officer. So as per the law, there is a designated person in every district to see education of children with disabilities. So that person needs to be contacted, that person needs to be taken on loop, that person needs to be in our team. That is the second part. Third is, when you talk of school, let us today be sure that school actually is being supported by a committee called the School Management Committee. So all of us need to know there is a school management committee. Many schools are doing this very well. Many are misusing this committee. So this empathized, and this particular committee needs to be taken on board. And also, if it is a government school, then the CBSE norm of having special educators needs to be implemented. You see, CBSE has given this order almost 5 years back. If a particular school is not implementing, that report should have been gone to CBSE. CBSE would write to them and maybe threaten them with de-recognizing their school itself, because the order is very, very clear. This many special needs children, you must have one special educator. So those kind of things needs to be taken up. Once those things are in place, then maybe the principal to be taken on board. The principal needs to be sensitized, maybe through a visit to center like yours. And once these principals are sensitized, then the training program of teacher begins. So once we get the training program for teachers through the principal, then things changes very well. I got about 450 schools of Andaman and Nicobar through all these mechanisms just now I told you. And my project was empathy engineering for teachers and the students. So the commissioner agreed, the district education officer agreed. We took the school management committee into forum. We took the principals into forum, and this program was immensely successful because we talked about empathy development initially, empathy engineering initially for students and teachers. We did not talk of teachers training. So once the empathy was developed, empathy engineering was done with the students and the teachers. Next time when we went to them, then students' participation in helping our kids and teacher participation in helping our kids increased. We have got a nice example to share today. We had a school in Delhi, a government school. So all of you must be having a subject called SUPW, Socially Useful Productive Work, SUPW. In our time, we had this kind of subject. Nobody knew what this subject was. Everybody knew that we all get A+ there. So about 20 years back, we studied that. We went to a principal and we told, give us class 8. We'll have 1 hour every week on this SCPW. Principal was very happy. Then we started training the kids on development of teaching learning material for special needs children of that school. It was a huge Delhi government school. And after 1 year, we left. I did not know. After about 10 years, I received a call from that school, a different principal, not that principal, a different principal by that time. After about 10 years, the principal called me, there's an emergency. You are from such and such organization. Please come and report. So I went to them. This principal pleaded with me to stop that project. And you won't guess why. They did not have space to store those TLM being prepared by class 8 students for years together on a weekly basis.
Wow.
Everybody will go home being with something, some dibba, some this and that every time, and they had been storing for 10 years. Now they are tired. So, the world is not very bad, and the world is very good also. So let us be sharing the good things that is possible with everyone.
Absolutely, sir. And I think it also takes that awareness and initiative from the professional and parents' end. So we also have a question linked to that in the chat box for you, sir. Priyanka there is asking that can we provide her any idea how to seek or apply for high support assistance from the government? Is there any specific procedure that we need to follow for seeking any assistance? Who do they reach to? Yeah.
Yes, there must be. The, the order is very clear. The order is very clear. We have to reach the district medical board. District medical board. I think UDID, you have the UDID card system, not doing very well. West Bengal is at the lowest ladder, I know that. But otherwise, you have got this UDID system of certification. And there in this committee, in the board, you need to apply specific disability with specific percentage of disability, they will give high support need category. I think for Kolkata, NIPID RC should be able to guide.
Okay. Okay.
NIPID RC should be able to guide. Being a government organization, they should be able to guide about high support needs certification. Kriti Sudha must be the psychologist, I think, no? I don't know. I may have forgotten her name. She should be Kriti Sudha. There is a clinical psychologist in NIPID RC. She should be able to guide as to where to go in West Bengal high support need. And also as an organization, all of you need to fight back with the government, propose to the government for special security for high support need. Social security, no. Say there is pension of 1,000 for the regular disabilities. For developmental disabilities, that pension should be 50% more. And for a high support need, the pension should be double. Rajasthan has got very good example. Rajasthan government has 100% enhanced rate for high support need social security. So those kind of circulars can be taken forward in West Bengal as well. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. So we have 8 more minutes left. So I would request if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask sir directly, they can please raise their hand or they can type it in the chat box. We'll try to utilize this last 7 minutes we have with us.
Sir, can you please write in the chat box the name of the association that you are referring with regard to high support need?
I'll pass it on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I didn't get the question, ma'am. Can you repeat?
So she was asking about the name of the organization that you just mentioned.
Can you repeat the question? Somebody can repeat the question, please.
Yeah, I was
or
just
you can
asking.
type.
Yeah. Okay, let me type it.
I did that already. Yeah. Do we have any more questions from the audience? If anybody has a question, I would please request you to raise your hand so that we can get your question. Or you write down in the chat box. Sir, till we get some more questions, we have another question from the participant that what is virtual autism, sir? We have had a bit of discussion in the earlier sessions about it, but if you could just briefly tell us what is virtual autism and how we can address it, it would be very nice.
This is not my domain, ma'am. I'd like to refrain from this question, ma'am.
Sure, no problem. No problem at all. Yes, Priyanka, Priyanka ma'am, I have wrote the name of that center and also somebody from SASR has wrote down the name. So it's in the chat box, if you could please check. Right? Yeah.
Regarding the high support need, ma'am, somebody has written the institution. It is NIEPID, National Institute for Empowerment of Persons with Intellectual Disability at Bon Hugli Regional Center, Kolkata. So it's in the NILD campus, National Institute for Locomotor Disability campus. They have this regional center. They should be able to guide in West Bengal. For every state, we will have a different organization to guide. So wherever there is a central government body in a state, they should be able to guide.
Right, sir. Thank you. So we have another question that how can we identify if a stimming behavior is harmful or helpful?
as I told you, first is we need to identify all stimming behavior versus function of that behavior. Function means purpose of the behavior. So what purpose the stimming behavior is performing. Sometimes they can be performing a stimming behavior to get something. We call them tangible behavior. Sometimes they are performing a stimming behavior to escape from something. So some incidents or place or something, we call them escape behavior. Sometimes it is self-stimulation, sometimes it is attention seeking, and sometimes it is skill deficit, because I don't know how to do a particular thing and then I'm having a stimming behavior. So as regards attention, tangible, and escape purpose goes, we will straight away take up behavior modification very strongly. If the purpose of the stimming behavior relates to attention seeking or getting something from somebody or escaping from something, then we'll take up pure behavior modification strategies. Now, when it is skill deficit, then we'll take up gradual training program for that particular skill so that the stimming behavior will be reduced. Now, when it's self-stimulation, then it is difficult. Then we need to understand the stimming behavior from the perspective, number one, of amount of social deviation. Now, stimming behavior can be very, very mild. Yesterday, where I was talking to somebody, I was rolling a wheel like this all the time. That was a very, very socially acceptable kind of a thing, which I was doing in a very nice manner. I was sounding more smarter than usually I am. Then this somehow this lady caught hold of me, and I told her, anyway, this is part of my behavioral issues, but I think I was looking smarter enough. So how much is the deviation of the social behavior? That is one angle that we need to study. Then also situations. What is the situation where this occurs, and the task at hand? What kind of productivity, the level of productivity is the stimming. Say I am asking you to give me a glass of water, and your stimming behavior goes on for say 5 minutes for a small task. So benefit and this thing, pros and cons of the task at hand needs to be just. I'm asking you to appear for an examination. Now you are having stimming for 10 minutes. So this kind of judgment needs to be done in terms of task and hand, situation, and amount of social division of the stimming behavior, and gradually stimming to be targeted to be more overt. So stimming can be very, very overt. I can be loud and screaming, I can be shouting, and sometimes gradually with work, they can become very, very covert in nature. So how do you gradually promote a person from a very, very overt stimming behavior to very, very covert stimming behavior? That is one challenge we take up. And also selecting criteria for selecting a stimming behavior. See, sometimes not that the child is stimming and we jump onto it for intervention. Say stimming behavior is there which is harmful to the child himself, then maybe immediately we intervene. Sometimes it is harmful to others, then also say we will immediately intervene. But sometimes it is interfering in learning and say daily routine. Then we can take up gradual intervention. And sometimes it is interfering with say, social acceptance. Then we can even be very slow in terms of intervention. Supposing a behavior is not pertaining to particular age, gender, culture, place, or situation, it is not very appropriate, then we can even take up even very slowly. So what kind of seeming behavior to be taken up instantly for behavior modification and what we can gradually take on, that also needs some kind of an understanding. And also with autism without intellectual disability, with adults, we have been very much successful in self-management techniques as well. Say observation of self through recordings and through other means, and then self-recording. These days you have WhatsApp, you have everything self-recording, and there's understanding what is your target and giving a statement to oneself, and then having a cue to remind me of what kind of corrections that I want to make, and then self-rewarding, because our adults are very much aware of what is self-reward, and then also correspondent training and further anger management. This kind of self-management techniques have been also very, very successful. The only problem is that you see, childhood autism needed to be intervened at the age of say 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. See, we lost early intervention without transdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. We lost the schooling age without transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary, transdisciplinary team. We lost the family environment. Family went into the stage of shock, denial, anger, blah, 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 depression and all. And then all of a sudden, you have an adult with autism and you want everything to go away overnight. So that's where the problem is. So I hope so the future is going to be better if our understanding on all this perspective will improve. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. So thank you. I mean, the clarity that you brought to the table, and it's wonderful. And I think it only comes with so much intense and involved experience. And thanks a lot, sir, for being here with us today. And we really want you here with us. Whenever you come to Kolkata, just let us know. We would love to have you here at our place, and we would be honored to have you with us here. In front of us. You're wonderful, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So we would just close the session with, I would request Mudhparna ma'am to take it up from here. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very nice meeting you, sir.
Sir, what a wonderful session and what an enlightening session with you for the last one and a half hour. Thank you, sir, for sharing such a varied experience and expertise and such reality-based opinions and views. We had a really good interactive and learning session. Thank you once again, sir, for being with us. Now I would like to invite Papia ma'am to cast the vote of thanks. Papia ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Madhuparna. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to thank everyone joining here today. On behalf of Deepranjani Foundation, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, Dr. Himangshu Das sir, former director of National Institute for Empowerment for persons with multiple disability, visual disability, intellectual disability, and physical disability. Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable knowledge and time with us today. My sincere thanks to all participants for joining in today's webinar. My sincere thanks to Madhuparna Das Chaudhary for hosting the webinar. I also thank our moderators, Dr. Amrita Panda ma'am, founder and director of Deepranjani Foundation, and also Priyanka Mukherjee for wonderfully moderating today's event. My sincere thanks to Deepranjani Capacity Building backend team. Without their support, it was not possible to arrange today's webinar. I hope today's topic will add a lot of value to our day-to-day activities. In the upcoming weeks, Deepranjani is going to host a couple of webinars and on-site hands-on training programs in some important topics. I hope you all will be there to support Deepranjani foundations and enhance yourself also. At the end, once again, I extend my gratitude to the esteemed speaker, sir, and the lovely participant. Hope all of you have already submitted your feedback forms. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend.